Assalamu alaikum. I am Carla Thomas. I am the spokesperson for the U.S. Embassy here in Dhaka, and welcome to AmTalk. AmTalk is going to be an occasional show that we will be posting on our own YouTube channel. So we felt it very important that for the inaugural show, we have a very special guest. And our guest today is Ambassador Peter Haas, who arrived in Bangladesh about 2 months ago. And I wanted to say welcome, Ambassador
Thank you.
Haas.
It's great to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. So I will go ahead and get right into it.
Okay.
All right. So obviously, it's the 50th anniversary this year of the U.S. Bangladesh relationship. We just celebrated the day only a few weeks ago. If you could tell us a little bit more about the U.S. Bangladesh relationship priorities going forward.
Sure. Thank you. And I can't think of a better place to be than Bangladesh in the 50th anniversary of our bilateral relationship. Because when you look back and you see just how far the relationship has come over the past 50 years, and just what enormous accomplishments Bangladesh has made over the past 50 years, you imagine a country that is emerging from war, an independence war fought in the name of democracy, and then looking at the socioeconomic standards at those times and the incredible development over those 50 years and the transformation of U.S. relations, where I like to think that we've been perhaps Bangladesh's best friend over those 50 years, in $8 billion of assistance that we've provided, working with Bangladesh to help them accomplish their goals. And that you see Bangladesh of today, one of the fastest growing economies, millions and millions of people brought out of poverty, rapid decline in under 5 infant mortality, much greater female participation in the workforce. And all I can do is be excited about what the next 50 years look like. And basically, what I like to say is that we're ready to go just as fast as Bangladesh is in advancing the partnership. And so there are a number of areas that we want to work on. One of them is on our security cooperation, both on the military side, where we already do lots of exercises with Bangladesh and their military, where Bangladesh is a world leader on peacekeeping operations around the world, and where we can learn and we can work together with them to better understand things like special operations, humanitarian disaster relief assistance, and other things. And we would also like to work with them on selling some of our military equipment. The second area is on democracy and human rights. We're both founded based on the notion of democracy and the notion that in our case, it was no taxation without representation. And so we have a lot to work with on that. And you know, the United States does have some concerns here in Bangladesh that we're not shy about talking about, but it's meant to be an open conversation and in the realization that we're working on those things too. And then the final area is economics, where I just see as a tremendous growth area going forward. And so on all of these, we're looking to identify the concrete areas that we need to move on in order to take that forward. And my goal is to move just as fast as the government of Bangladesh and the people of Bangladesh want us to move.
So let's talk a little bit more about the economic partnership. What's the status on the bilateral trade currently, and what are really the key issues in terms of economics and trade here in Bangladesh?
No, so on the trade side, I'll just say it's not fair, only in the sense that that our bilateral trading relationship is about $8 billion, $10 billion a year, but almost all of that is Bangladeshi exports to the United States as opposed to imports of U.S. Products and services. And so while I have no interest in Bangladeshi's exports to the United States going down and only want them to see them go up, I also want to make sure U.S. companies can compete here in Bangladesh and that the tendering processes and the business processes are as transparent and fair as possible. But you're right, there's an incredible excitement in the United States among our business people in Bangladesh as a market because of the macroeconomic stability, because of the rapid growth, because of the rapidly growing middle class here. And obviously it's, it's American companies don't wake up every morning and say, hey, am I going to invest in Bangladesh? No, they wake up every morning and they say, do I need to invest overseas? Do I need to do business overseas? And then if they say yes, and then they ask, okay, where do I need to do business? Where's the most attractive destination? And that's one of the things that, that I think that Bangladesh can work on in making itself a more attractive destination, not just for U.S. companies, but to foster their own private sector development. And so really looking forward to them having that opportunity and to talking about what they see as their possibilities here.
So we talked a little bit about the economic and trade relationship. What are some of the tools and the issues in our trade relationship? Any frictions or opportunities?
Sure, thank you. So one of the biggest issues that the government of Bangladesh brings up most frequently is a request for the resumption of GSP benefits. And so GSP is the generalized system of preferences by which the United States provides some tariff relief for developing countries. And as you know, the United States revoked GSP benefits for Bangladesh in 2013 after the Rana Plaza disaster tragedy. And we also communicated a number of things that we would like to see Bangladesh do in order to protect labor and labor rights and worker safety before we restarted our GSP with Bangladesh. Unfortunately, Bangladesh has not yet met those, but they continually seek us lifting the GSP restriction. Again, this is part of where we're happy to go as fast as the government of Bangladesh wants to go. I think the lifting of GSP restrictions on Bangladesh would actually be transformative for U.S. companies and for Bangladesh. And it's not because the benefits received under GSP are huge. And there's also a misperception that, that Bangladesh's ready-made garments qualify for GSP benefits, which they don't. The real problem now is that as long as Bangladesh is not eligible for GSP benefits, it is also not allowed to participate or to receive funding from our new Development Finance Corporation. So the Development Finance Corporation in the United States is designed to do a number of things, to provide political risk insurance. It can provide equity-based financing. It can also provide debt-based financing for projects. And usually these are huge infrastructure-related projects, whether it's in roads, renewable energy, information technology sector, healthcare. In some places it's been involved in manufacturing vaccines and projects manufacturing vaccines. And the U.S. companies I talk to are really excited about the possibility of using the DFC for their projects here in Bangladesh because it can reduce their cost, the cost of investment. For example, I was talking to an energy company recently who said that if there is DFC and they have that funding, at the end of the day, the cost of the power they sell to Bangladesh can be lower. And so it's this tremendous tool that's not there. And so I would very much like to work with Bangladesh to figure out if we can unlock that to get their GSP benefits restored so that we could have the DFC here. I've been told that they have up to $4 billion of investments under consideration in South Asia. But unfortunately, they can't look at Bangladesh. And again, I think that would be transformative in our economic relationship.
So you actually already touched on security cooperation here, but I will just say the elephant in the room. After the U.S. sanctions on RAB, how do you see the future of our security cooperation? And is there any possibility of lifting sanctions soon?
Sure. So there's a couple of aspects to it, and I think people can be overly focused on the RAB sanctions and then miss all of the cooperation that's going on. So we cooperate, we've already talked a little bit about the military, but we also cooperate across all aspects of law enforcement and counterterrorism and maritime security. And we have deep and long-standing relationships on that. We also provide training to the judiciary, to the prosecutors. And so we have all of that training, the police. And so we have all of this training and partnership going on, and that we're very eager to continue and to deepen. There is, of course, the Rapid Action Battalion, where we imposed sanctions last December. And a lot of times we hear how surprised Bangladesh was. And maybe we're almost surprised they're surprised, because already in 2018, we stopped providing training to the Rapid Action Battalion because of our concerns on human rights. For several years, we've published in our human rights reports our concerns. We've raised it with them in bilateral meetings. And so while the sanctions may have come as a surprise, the idea that we had concerns should not have. And a lot of people ask me if I think this will damage our bilateral relations. And I just say, I don't think it has to. Again, we have such a wide area of areas that we cooperate, this being one of them, but we have other frictions in the relationship. And that's okay when you have a relationship as broad and deep as we are. But what I want to see us do, both on RAB and every other aspect, is to sit down and to talk about, okay, what do we need to do to resolve this issue? And it may be that we say what we want, and the government of Bangladesh says we can't do that, which is fine, a sovereign nation, and we just move on. And there are things that we'll ask for that they'll say, no, we can't do that. And we just move on. And so I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you. All right, so what are your thoughts about Bangladesh and democracy and human rights? We sort of touched on it a little bit with the discussion about sanctions, but what are the expectations for the upcoming national elections?
First, I do want to start with the ready admission that the United States is not perfect, that our Constitution talks about forming an ever more perfect union. And although grammatically I'm not sure that makes sense, that you can be ever more perfect, it does reflect an attitude that we have in the United States. And you know, as you know, President Biden hosted the Summit for Democracies recently, and we, the United States, made a pledge in the year of action of what we wanted to do to ensure that our democracy was better. And it's a wide variety of things. Post-George Floyd, there's been a tremendous amount of introspection and debate in the United States on the role of police forces, on the role of the rules of their rules of engagement, on accountability for them. And this is something that we're really struggling with and very publicly debating in the United States. And then also, people have seen after our last national elections, there were allegations of fraud. And there have been hundreds of court cases filed on that. And you know, to me, that's all part of ensuring that the democracy continues, that it's not you just have a democracy at one point, but you have to continually work at it. And so here in Bangladesh, I think there are things that the Bangladeshi people and the government can work on as well. And I think the elections provide a good framing for that, because they're still more than a year out. And, you know, I also want to be clear, the United States has no preference. We have no vote. We don't favor any particular party or platform or anything else. That's not our role. But what we would like to see is what I think all Bangladeshis would like to see, which is an election run at international standards that allow the people of Bangladesh to choose their next leaders in an open, competitive process, free of violence and free of coercion. And so I think it sounds simple, but I realize it's not necessarily. That's what we would very much like to see. And I very much welcome some of the signs, some of the signals we've been receiving. Foreign Minister Momin has made it clear that Bangladesh will welcome international observers. And I think that's critical, but the election actually has already started, and so it's important to be looking at it all the way from now to make sure that everyone feels safe and secure in their decision on whether or not to participate in any aspect of the upcoming elections.
So, shifting gears into more people-to-people ties. We have seen recently, it's been recently reported that Bangladeshi university students overwhelmingly prefer the United States as their destination for university. What are your thoughts on strengthening people-to-people ties? Also, I should not fail to mention that Fulbrighters, we will be welcoming at least one U.S. Fulbright scholar back to Bangladesh very soon, in the next month or two. But talk to me a little bit more about people-to-people ties, yep, including university.
Yeah, great. Sometimes we people in government have the conceit that we are the most important people in the world and that our relations with other government officials are the most important. But Bangladesh, having a rich tradition in weaving, will know the difference between the warp and the weft. And the warp are just these few strings running up and down, and maybe those are the government-to-government relations, and they just provide a little bit of structure. The weave is what makes the tapestry beautiful and what provides the vibrancy and the richness. And I see the people-to-people as the weave. And you see that the number of Bangladeshis I've met who've studied in the United States and the ideas that they bring back, whether it's Teach for Bangladesh or Jago, and then they incorporate them here, or some of the entrepreneurs who have studied in the United States and are introducing innovative healthcare models here. The culture, the people who have been to the United States and come back, and how it affects their art and how they present. And so to me, that is the beautiful part about U.S. Bangladeshi relations that we often forget in our stale talking points back and forth to the government. And so I'm really excited when I hear that that Bangladesh is now the 14th largest sender of students to the United States, to our universities, and maybe more critically, the fastest growing country in terms of the number of students that are going to the United States. And so there, I'm really excited and really want people to be aware of our Education USA programming, because, let's be honest, it is probably intimidating applying to a U.S. university, and all of the questions, which of the 3,000 universities in the United States is best for me? How could I possibly afford it? What is the GRE or SAT or ACT? How do I go about it? And so it's great that we have two Education USA hubs here in Dhaka, and then others in Chittagong, in Khulna, and in Sylhet, for people to be able to come and get some advice on how to do that, how to get scholarships and all of that. So I'm really excited about that part and about more students going to the United States and then coming back here and sharing their knowledge here. We also mentioned business. To me, that's just another critical part of the people-to-people exchange, is our business people coming back and forth and sharing ideas and looking for ways to apply their skills and build those ties.
Right. So we talked a little bit about people-to-people ties, sort of in the general sense. You've been here a couple months. Can you tell us maybe some highlights from your conversations with young people, or some of the stuff that you're looking forward to doing in the future?
Yeah. So I have to say it's been endlessly fascinating. And that every time I start to think I understand something, I'm exposed to something else that makes me realize that it's far more complicated than I thought. I still feel like there are whole groups of people I haven't interacted with. And so I've started off with a lot of government officials talking about that warp part. I have started having some conversations with university professors to get the thought. I've started having some conversations with students and young student leaders, which frankly has been the most energizing part of what I've done. And seeing these people and their ambitions and their ideas, and then trying to take in my mind of taking that 20-year-old or 15-year-old, adding 50 to it for our 100th year anniversary, thinking about the generation change, and just, I think they are the people who will possibly take it faster than we can. So when I say that we're ready to go as fast as Bangladesh is, I think if we were to take the 20-year-olds, that they could probably run faster than we can on taking this relationship forward.
I think that's a great place to end. Thank you, sir, for so much of your valuable time. And I want to thank you for joining us on this, our very first episode of AmTalk. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch our Facebook page and watch this space for more shows in the future.